In today's Farm Report, a nitrogen conference was recently held. Dan Martins with the University of Minnesota Extension Service Office shares some highlights.
Today I'll share a couple of comments from the nitrogen conference held last Friday in St. Cloud. Robert Mullen, currently working with the Potash Corporation, formerly an agronomist at Ohio State, talked about nitrogen markets. He made no predictions about whether nitrogen prices would go up or down, but talked about factors that drive nitrogen markets as things to watch. Mullen pointed out that U.S. farmers since 1980 have doubled the amount of crop produced while using about the same amount of fertilizer. That speaks to tremendous gains in using fertilizer effectively and efficiently. I'd guess there are a lot of reasons for that: genetic improvements, irrigation, drainage, pest control, changing tillage practices to reduce compaction and improve root development, more strategic use of manure nutrients, accounting for legume credits, and more. Basic supply and demand are still major factors. Short supplies push prices up, excessive supplies push prices down. While phosphorus and potassium are mined from physical deposits, nitrogen is basically taken from the air around us. About 75 to 77% of the air we breathe is nitrogen. Natural gas is the major raw material used in the chemistry of making anhydrous ammonia, and anhydrous ammonia is the raw material for making most other forms of nitrogen fertilizer. Key areas for petroleum are key areas for natural gas production, and then key areas for producing anhydrous ammonia. The economics and politics in oil markets are significant in the economics and politics in nitrogen fertilizer production. The hydraulic fracturing of getting oil out of the ground, as we see in North Dakota, has added a resource for natural gas in making anhydrous ammonia. Anhydrous plants in Trinidad became a major player in nitrogen fertilizer around 1990, when natural gas there was less than half the cost of natural gas in the U.S. As oil producers in the Middle East adjust the amount of oil they are pumping and where it goes, those governments also determine how natural gas is used and how much is available to production facilities like Trinidad. China is a huge player in making nitrogen fertilizer, and they are kind of a wild card because they are not very reliable in sharing what they're up to, kind of like we see how they deal in grain markets. Cold weather directs more natural gas to heating fuel. Cold weather also affects how anhydrous ammonia and other products move by rail because air brake systems on trains work less efficiently when the weather is cold and rail companies run shorter trains. The U.S. uses 80% of the anhydrous ammonia used in agriculture. Most of the rest of the world uses mostly urea fertilizer. Worldwide corn acres are a huge factor in the fertilizer supply and demand picture, especially of course for nitrogen fertilizer. Fertilizer distribution system operates on tight inventory management, as do a lot of other things in today's world, and nitrogen is certainly a global commodity. I'm Dan Martins with U of M Extension, and I hope your day is going well.
The Todd County Dairy Association held its 2015 Dairy Princess Banquet and Coronation on March 7th at the Broadville Community Center. Crowned 2015 Todd County Dairy Princes were Savannah Bourdress, Caitlin Middendorf, and Karina Parrish. Crowned 2015 Todd County Dairy Ambassadors were Megan Hollerman, Rebecca, and Rachel Paskowitz.
We may be using less corn to make ethanol this year than had been expected. You may remember that last month, the Agriculture Department upped its forecast for corn use in ethanol by 50 million bushels. This week, they took it back down by 50 million, even though ethanol production is expected to rise as gasoline use rises. We asked USDA's acting chief economist Rob Johansson about this, and he said the new forecast is based on new statistical surveys just started up at USDA on industrial uses of grains.
And we're finding from those reports that we're using less corn to make a gallon of ethanol. So our ethanol refining is becoming more efficient. So because we're becoming more efficient at refining ethanol and we know the number of gallons that were produced, we can back out the fact that fewer bushels of corn were used to make those ethanol gallons.
USDA forecasting 5.2 billion bushels of corn will go into making ethanol this year, 1% less than the previous forecast, but 1.3% more than last year. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Washington.